Good evening and welcome to the Daily News Roundup. I am Abigail Smythe. Among the stories in this evening's newscast, case involving murder-accused Rushawn Patterson transferred to St. James Circuit Court. Several people detained in St. Anne for looting a truck in Monique after the driver is murdered. American fugitive held in Manchester. Minister of Agriculture and Fisheries reporting growth of 17.4% for July to September period. Government signs contract for new 15 million gallon water treatment plant. In business, Jamaica remains on solid growth trajectory despite global economic challenges. In the region, children account for roughly 40% of confirmed cholera cases in Haiti. Further overseas, thousands of teachers and university lecturers walk off the job in the UK. And in sports, South Korea and Uruguay start World Cup campaigns with 1-0 draw. Now for the news in detail. The case involving murder-accused Rushawn Patterson has been transferred to the St. James Circuit Court by way of a voluntary bill of indictment. Patterson is charged with the murder of 35-year-old social media personality Anika Slickiana Townsend. A 47-year-old security guard, Rowan Rose, also called Early B, is charged with misprision of a felony in relation to the same matter. The two made their first physical appearance in court on Wednesday. The attorney representing Patterson, Michelle Thomas, says a bail hearing application is set for December 15. Meanwhile, attorney representing co-accused Rowan Rose, Martin Thomas, says a November 28 date has been set for his client's bail application consideration. While Thomas wanted the court to immediately hear the application, the Crown was not ready as it wanted some information in place. Thomas argued that his client has been in custody since November 4 and has appeared in court on 3 occasions after being charged. He said it was made known that a bail application would be made. In his bail application, Thomas noted that his client, who has more than one dependent, has lost his job. He further argued that at the time Rose was arrested, he was working as a supervisor at Guardsman, a position which he held for the past 9 years. The Crown, however, argued that another date is needed for the matter as the police had been asked to retrieve more information. The Crown said the information will inform them how to address the application as conditions of bail. Slickiana's body was retrieved from the sea in Reading, St. James on Friday, October 21. A post-mortem examination conducted on her body on November 5 concluded that her death was caused by strangulation. Police reports are that on October 20, Townsend traveled from Kingston to Montego Bay, where she was picked up by Patterson. According to the police, during the course of the evening, they visited a restaurant in Hanover and a guest house in St. James. The police further state that at some point during the night, an argument developed between them. The police are alleging that Patterson strangled Townsend and disposed of her body. He was arrested on November 2 during a high-level intelligence-driven operation. Reputed gang leader of the Clarendon-based Ranko gang, Constable Tafari Silvera, and his 8 alleged cronies were remanded until February 2 after their bail hearing failed to get underway in the Home Circuit Court on Wednesday. When the case was mentioned, the judge was informed that 2 of the defendants were without lawyers. Consequently, the hearing was postponed for them to obtain legal representation. Silvera, who is accused of hiring 2 hitmen to murder a police informant, is among 4 cops implicated in the matter. They were arrested in March after they were accused of being a part of the 27-member gang. Silvera and 2 civilians, Christopher Robinson and Mark Bennett, are also before the Home Circuit Court on charges of conspiracy to murder. They were arrested in relation to a plot to kill an alleged crony who was accused of being a police informant. The Ranko gang, which has been linked to 17 incidents, is alleged to have been involved in shootings, burglaries, robberies, illegal possession of firearm, shop breaking, conspiracy to murder, and abduction. The offences were allegedly carried out in Clarendon, Manchester, St. Elizabeth, St. Catherine, St. Mary, Trelawney, Kingston, St. Andrew and St. James between 2019 and 2021. Several people have been detained by the St. Anne police in connection with the looting of a truck in Moneague on the weekend. The looters stormed the truck after the driver was fatally shot by gunmen along the main road in Faith's Pen. They stole millions of dollars worth of food items, including rice, flour, cornmeal, oil, and other goods. The truck was transporting the goods on behalf of Facey Commodity to Western Jamaica. Head of the St. Anne Police, Senior Superintendent Dwight Powell, says the police have recovered some of the stolen items and arrested some people following daily operations in Faith's Pen. He is urging others who may still be in possession of stolen goods to hand them over to the Moneague police. SSP Powell warns that those who do not comply and are found in possession of these items will be taken into custody and prosecuted. He adds that the police are searching for the suspects involved in the fatal shooting of the truck driver, 47-year-old Dane Garfield Brown, who is a resident of Seavright Gardens in St. Andrew. He notes that the police are following leads regarding the prime suspect in the case. An American fugitive who is wanted in New York was arrested during a pre-dawn operation in Greenvale, Manchester on Wednesday. The operation was carried out by members of the Jamaica Fugitive Apprehension Team and CTOC Special Ops. He is 18-year-old Matthew Pinnock, who is wanted on a provisional warrant of arrest under the Extradition Act for various offenses to include attempted murder, conspiracy to commit murder, robbery, assault, criminal possession of a weapon, reckless endangerment, among other charges. Reports are that the team went to premises in the community where a house was searched and Pinnock was found hiding. He was subsequently transported to Kingston, where he remains in custody. He is set to appear in the Corporate Area Parish Court on Friday, November 25. And another American man, Charles Manord Rainey, who is accused of molesting an underage girl in Georgia back in 2010, has been deported to his homeland. He was captured in St. James last week. Investigations led to him being charged for aggravated child molestation, and sexual battery. However, he did not show up for his scheduled July 2011 court appearance, leading to a bench warrant being issued for his arrest. Rainey was captured in a raid carried out by members of the Lotto Scam Task Force, Fugitive Apprehension Team, Counterterrorism and Organized Crime Investigations Branch, and the United States Marshals Service. After his arrest in Norwood, St. James last week, Rainey reportedly admitted to authorities that he had overstayed his visa, issued in 2011, that was only good for 6 months. He was deported to Georgia last Friday, November 18, where he is being held without bond. A man who allegedly chopped his former spouse's partner to death in Discovery Bay, St. Anne on Friday has been charged with murder. He is 60-year-old Randolph Thomas of Retirement District in the parish. The deceased has been identified as Roy Alexander of Tri-C in the parish. Reports are that around 6 p.m. on Friday, Alexander went to visit his girlfriend who has a child with the accused. The police say Thomas had also gone to visit his child. An altercation reportedly developed between the two men, and Alexander was chopped several times with a machete. He was pronounced dead at the Sentence Bay Hospital. The Ministry of Agriculture and Fisheries is reporting growth of 17.4% for the July to September period. Portfolio Minister Pernell Charles Jr. says the outturn represents 6 consecutive quarters of growth since the second quarter of 2021 and is one of the best performing quarters on record. He states that gross output for the subsector for the third quarter of 2022 amounted to 214,000 108,599.2 tons in comparison to 182,750 tons reaped in the similar period of 2021. All major crop groups reflected an increase for the third quarter of 2022. Minister Charles notes that the most significant increases were observed for plantains at 21.9%, fruits 20.8%, yams 19.1%, vegetables 18.5%, and condiments at 16.9%. In terms of absolute volumes, the most significant increases were seen for vegetables 11,522 tons, yams 8,166 tons, and fruits 4,449 tons. Finance Minister Dr. Nigel Clark is warning security companies that they are standing on shaky ground. He says a failure to pass through improvements in the minimum wage to employees is illegal. Dr. Clark says he will stand in support with those pouring disdain on those companies to adhere to the minimum wage law. But, according to opposition leader Mark Golding, some security firms are refusing to pass on recent improvements in the minimum wage due to government contracts which were locked in before the increase. Golding says security guards are in no position to object due to the particularly vulnerable bargaining position they hold. The opposition leader asked Dr. Clark if the government would be willing to renegotiate these contracts to allow the companies to meet the new minimum wage obligations. Dr. Clark made it clear that this is no excuse not to pay what is owed. He called on the opposition leader to provide him with evidence of any security company refusing to pay the minimum wage increases. At least two members of parliament are siding with their colleague Robert Montague that unused monies under the Constituency Development Fund (CDF) must be reallocated to political representatives who are keen on using them for projects in their area. This is in response to Nationwide's probe that revealed that JLP's Marcia Smith leads a group of MPs who have failed this year to fully utilize their annual allocations under the CDF. The probe found that Ms. Smith, who was first elected to Parliament in 2020, had an unallocated and unspent sum of more than $16 million up to the end of October. That's $16 million of a total of $19 million, which means she used only $3 million of the $19 million allocated to her. She's followed by fellow MP for St. Anne South East, the PNP's Lisa Hanna, who has $9 million unspent. MP for Northwest St. Catherine Hugh Graham says he supports the call for the reallocation of funds because the current sum is not enough. MP for Southwest St. Elizabeth Floyd Green also agrees, noting that he had to be creative with his allocation. MPs are required to make certain mandatory allocations to treat programs under categories to include education, welfare, and sports. In the meantime, Mr. Green believes the salaries of CDF officers should be direct payments from the government. Personal CDF officers are currently paid from the $20 million allocated to each constituency. They are normally tasked with writing constituency proposals. Additionally, Mr. Green highlights the need for more funding to especially treat with infrastructure projects. As the demand for water continues to grow, the government signed a contract on Wednesday for a 15 million imperial gallon per day capacity water treatment plant at Content in St. Catherine. It is a public-private partnership agreement between the National Water Commission (NWC) and Rio Cobre Water Limited. The project is expected to cost $9.6 billion. Prime Minister Andrew Holness says the facility, with an estimated construction period of 2 years, is set to benefit a significant amount of customers.
The project is expected to positively impact approximately 150,000 customers in the KSA region, Portmore and Spanish Town as well. It will reduce the need for future trucking of water and reduce, if not eliminate, the need for water restrictions to affected areas during periods of drought. So what this project really is the building of resilience in the water supply system for the KSMA, Portmore, and Spanish Town. That means that even if there is a shock an environmental or weather shock, that we should be able to maintain the required level of supply.
The NWC is required to supply approximately 55 million gallons per day to meet the water needs in the Kingston metropolitan area. However, presently, only 28 million gallons is available for distribution during the dry seasons. Prime Minister Holness says several other projects are currently in procurement or under construction across the island.
Drops that you're seeing on the map in white shows you all the other projects now that are either in procurement or in construction. And again, widely dispersed across the island in every parish. If you were to take all of those projects together, the NWC would be increasing its capacity by a further 50 million imperial gallons of water per day. That is significant.
In the meantime, the Prime Minister admits that there has not been enough investment in water over the years.
We really have not been making the investment in water over these many years. There's been significant disinvestment, actually, in water. And so we have to move very quickly to catch up.
And in business news, latest projections from the Planning Institute of Jamaica, PIOJ, indicate that Jamaica remains on a solid growth trajectory despite global economic challenges. PIOJ's Director General, Dr. Wayne Henry, says the country can expect to finish out this year with 4 to 5% growth. For the recently concluded July to September quarter, the country saw 4.3% growth, driven primarily by continued gains in tourism. As represented by hotels and restaurants, that section of the economy recorded an improvement of nearly 30%. For January to September, the economy has thus far recorded growth of 5.2%. While the economic picture remains positive, the Director General still warns that several risks exist to the country's growth forecast. Global economic conditions are coming under heavy strain, with the UK headed for its longest recession in recent history. There are also growing fears that the United States may also slip into a downturn. In the region, the United Nations Children's Fund, UNICEF, says that children account for roughly 40% of the confirmed cholera cases in Haiti. UNICEF is appealing for $27.5 million to save more lives from the disease. The outbreak began 2 months ago and is unfolding amid an economic crisis and rising insecurity due to gang violence. 90% of confirmed cases have been in areas with a high burden of severe acute malnutrition. UNICEF states that children suffering from the condition, which is also known as severe wasting, are more vulnerable to cholera and at least 3 times more at risk of dying from it. It also notes that there is a triple threat to the children's lives in Haiti: malnutrition, cholera, and armed violence. Further overseas, on the international scene, thousands of teachers and scores of postal workers and university lecturers in the UK walked off the job in industrial action on Thursday. They are demanding better pay and working conditions to cope with the country's cost of living crisis. The teachers' strike in Scotland, which shuttered every school in the Scottish mainland, was the first such one in the region in 40 years. Union members want a 10% pay rise, but Scottish authorities say they couldn't afford that. Elsewhere across the UK, picket lines were set up outside postal offices and universities in one of the biggest coordinated walkouts this year. In universities, some 70,000 academic staff were striking on Thursday and will do so again on November 30 in the biggest action of its kind in higher education. The action will affect an estimated 2.5 million students. And in sports, South Korea and Uruguay started their World Cup campaigns with a 0-0 draw on Thursday. Uruguay will face Portugal next in Group H, while South Korea plays Ghana. Belgium squeezed a 1-0 win over Canada's side, playing their first World Cup match for 36 years on Wednesday. Spain launched their bid to lift a second World Cup in spectacular style on Wednesday by shredding Costa Rica 7-0 in a brutal display which will serve as a warning for their rivals. And Switzerland secured a 1-0 victory over Cameroon. The Swiss next play tournament favorites Brazil on Monday, while Cameroon take on Serbia. And that's it for your news roundup for today. I'm Abigail Smythe. See you next time.